Most of us want to make a meaningful difference in the world and discover our own purpose, happiness, and fulfillment in the process. The challenges in the world today have brought us to a point where deeper, more profound changes are required. It's no longer simply changing what we're doing, but considering more deeply how we do things. Our technology has vastly outpaced the social and spiritual evolution we need to apply it wisely. It's time that we address these dimensions of human consciousness in solving our grand challenges. And this applies equally across all facets of life and all sectors of society. This is the new frontier, and it requires visionary leadership, the kind of leadership that reinforces this frame shift and empowers people from the inside out, that elevates the best of human nature and encourages our shared human potential in the spirit of co-creation. The growing research on spiritual leadership is encouraging. Initially in the context of religion, it has now been applied to management and organizational science. Many studies have now shown that influence through vision, values, and relationships is far better than influence through fear, power, and control. As described by pioneer researcher Lewis Fry, this means incorporating vision, hope, faith, and altruistic love for intrinsic motivation, empowerment, and congruence. In organizations, this is to ultimately foster higher levels of commitment and productivity. But regardless of context, there is a strong focus on care, ethics, values, meaning, and positive interpersonal relationships. Gilbert Fairholm, another influential researcher in this field, has argued that values-based spiritual leadership is the only way to do leadership in today's globalized, multi-differentiated world. He also describes the evolution of leadership theory over the last century from the focus on who the leader is to leadership much more rooted in values, and he argues that the next new wave must be more spiritual leadership. And we've already seen a clear transition from leadership-centered workplaces to human-centered workplaces and the emergence of more values-based behaviours. We've seen this reflected in the growing focus on sustainability, both in ecological and emotional terms. New studies show that spiritual leadership has positive influences on sustainability in the workplace, as well as on individuals' behaviour more widely. But there's also a deeper shift to restore the more conscious connections and deeper relationships between people, places, and planet in what has been described as more unity of consciousness and collective self-awareness. This is about bringing out the best in everyone. But if we look around the world today, we still see that the loudest voices are often not the wisest. We have previously discussed the dark triad characteristics of narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. These traits are on a continuum, but in international population studies, about 7% have these traits above a threshold for dominance. Dark triads are often overrepresented in politics, corporations, and in the social media public square. But on the positive, quite literally, it is important to illuminate the other side of this equation that we hear far less about, the light triad. The characteristics of a light triad include, firstly, faith in humanity, or trusting in a fundamental goodness. Secondly, humanism, believing in the dignity and worth of each person. And thirdly, Kantianism, which adheres to a universal moral law of authenticity, refusing to objectify or manipulate others. The good news is that at least 50% of the international population samples qualify as light triads, and that the average person has more light than dark traits. These are the people that inspire us to be better, kinder, and optimistic, a phenomenon called moral elevation, by which mere proximity to moral beauty makes us feel more uplifted and even experience physiological shifts. And it's very important that we cultivate and value this, especially in young people, because that is how we can have a long-term influence on population trends. It also reinforces the importance of co-creating a space for connecting and exploring in deeper ways to magnify this. Even small efforts like this can have ripple effects that contribute to that deeper transition by reinforcing the value of kinder, wiser, and more enlightened ways of being, which can only truly be achieved from the inside out. There is so much turbulence on the surface of life that it is even more important to be able to dive beneath the waves towards the awareness of a deeper universal knowing and connection to the unavoidable unity of all things, into the subatomic mystery that somehow contains the fractals of the entire universe. If we can bring this wonder and awareness more to the surface of our lives, it may help calm the turbulence within us and around us. We're here to experience this marvelous and sometimes confusing mosaic of life, but this deeper awareness can help us realize that we are all co-creating what is happening in the world and that we have the power to choose something better with less fear, less judgment, and more love. And that is the perfect transition to our next speaker, Jude Currivan, who will take up the conversation from here, a physicist, cosmologist, and futurist who exemplifies the light triad, a light worker in every sense. Thank you, Jude.